Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this month's hearing of the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission. Today's date is June 13th, 2020, and the time is 5:00 p.m. I'm Kathy Pagani. I chair the commission. I'd like to invite my fellow commission members to introduce themselves to you, please. Beginning on my right.
Mary Harmon Young.
Jordan Morris.
Price McGifford.
Chris Brooks.
Sally Davis.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I just want to mention that our meeting format has been adjusted to allow for virtual comment in order to protect the health and well-being of our community. We want to thank everyone for supporting this change, and we appreciate your patience as we work through this evening's agenda. Joining us from city staff this evening, we have Mr. Chad Hobbs, who is the Associate City Attorney, Mr. Zach Pons, who is the Acting Director of Planning, Ms. Haley Harris is Planner. We have Mr. Jonathan Bowen, also Planner, and Ms. Angie Terrell, Administrative Assistant, all with the Office of Urban Development, and helping us with audiovisual support this evening is Mr. Kevin Jones. Before we get to our applications this evening, I'd like to go over the purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission and cover the process for this evening's hearing. The general purpose of the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission is that we serve to preserve and protect the buildings, sites, and structures of historic significance in Tuscaloosa's historic neighborhoods. We are governed by Chapter 20, Article 2 of the Code of Tuscaloosa, which includes design guidelines that are posted on the city's website. Our decisions are based on these design guidelines and do not consider use or occupancy. We do consider such factors as architectural style, appropriate of materials, and how the structure relates to other structures in the immediate neighborhood in determining the appropriateness of the application. Any approval of an application requires 5 affirmative votes. And if the certificate is approved, please be aware that there will be a final inspection by city staff of these approved applications to ensure compliance with what was approved by the commission this evening. Now, let me just go over procedure very quickly. This is a public hearing. It is televised live on local cable, streamed online through Facebook, and is being recorded to be posted on the city's website. Some participants in this meeting are joining through video conference or phone conference. We have made a few adjustments to our procedures to allow for fair participation in person or virtually. We ask for proper decorum, civility, and respect for others at all times. Prior to this meeting, notice was sent to adjacent property owners, and the public has been notified of the applications to be presented tonight. This hearing is a chance for the applicant to present his or her case, for the public to make their views known about the project, and for commission members to gather relevant facts about the application before making its decision. City staff will introduce the application. The applicant will then have a chance to make any comments. The commissioners will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant questions about the case. I will then open the hearing to public comment. For those participating virtually, city staff will notify you when you're next in line to speak. When it's your turn, staff will introduce you to the commission, and you'll be provided with up to 3 minutes to share your comments. At the close of public comment, the commission will then discuss the matter and vote on the application. Any person wishing to speak on behalf of another person, group, or entity shall provide written authorization to the chairperson from that person, group, or entity being represented. Immediate family members, and we define that as a spouse, a parent, or a child, do not have to provide such written authorization when speaking on behalf of another immediate family member. And we ask the applicants to please leave the signs in your yards, and city staff will be out in the next few days to gather them up. Now, on to business. Commission members, you've had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of you have a conflict of interest as defined by Section 6 of the Commission bylaws with any of these items? All right, hearing none. Let me ask city staff if proper notification has been provided for each of the agenda items.
It has.
Thank you, Mr. Pons. All right, let the record show that Dr. Nelson has joined the hearing, and let's move on to our applications for this evening, please.
Good afternoon, Commission. The first two cases we have were continued from the May meeting. We will start with HPC 1622. Joe Shirley petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for signage on the property located at 516 19th Avenue. This is in the Druid City Historic District and Council District 4. Here we have an image of the zoning. This property is Zone BN. Here's an aerial overview of the property as well as the surrounding properties. This is the portion of the building that we are focused on. This is the front facade of the building. This is the adjacent northern property and the adjacent eastern property. So the proposal is to install a 72-inch by 72-inch aluminum sign. On the next two slides, you'll see drawings of that sign. So again, here's the front facade of the building. The sign is actually going to be placed on the side, which you see in front of you. The sign will be located above that first window. Okay, and here's proposed drawings of the sign. Here are the existing and proposed elevations. So the sign itself is an aluminum base sign. There will be white paint, black paint, and gold paint. The gold that you see will be filled with bulbs, so it'll be illuminated. We also have examples of similar signs in the surrounding area. So here are the two signs that the applicant submitted as examples of what the sign could look like or would look like. The materials include the aluminum sign, the channel letters with bulbs, and the black, white, and gold paint. And here are the applicable design guidelines. We do have a representative to speak on behalf of this application.
Do we have any questions for city staff? Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Let me invite the applicant to come to the podium, please. And if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Yes, Milton Chancellor. I'm the sign contractor. I own Fast Signs of Tuscaloosa.
What can you tell us about the sign?
Yeah, it's going to be aluminum construction. The back part of it, the outline will be black paint. And then the sign itself, it will be aluminum, what we call channel letters. It will be 5 inches high, and it will outline the logo lush. And then the bulbs will go on the inside of it. It's kind of like a marquee type sign is what they call it. The ones that are similar to it would be at Mellow Mushrooms and the Cultural Arts Center. So that's kind of the look that it would be.
Are there any questions?
Just for our own clarification, you show 5 inches in this side view. Is that the overall depth of the sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the bulbs, they'll be LED. I think they'll be like an amber. You know, they've all replaced the incandescent bulbs out there today. So
I have one question. I understand why the owners would like to have the sign face University Boulevard, but will there ultimately be another sign on 19th Avenue? I mean, I assume the door is on the 19th Avenue side.
I would assume so. Charles Sperlin, who's supposed to be here present with this meeting, I think their plans are, I think it's also covered by different, isn't it? Different people that permit those signs.
So it would be dependent on if it's within the right-of-way or not. If it hangs over into the right-of-way, then that would be a different process than going through HPC.
And I'm not involved with those signs. I'm involved with this one.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you. If you could take a seat,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Let me open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to this application? And we have received no public comment via email. So I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion by commission members. Just for context, the Mellow Mushroom sign is just around the corner from this, and it did come to this commission a number of years ago.
Knowing that this is roughly a 1950s, mid-century type structure, it's always been a commercial use. Dr. Nelson may be able to clarify, but I believe it was a car dealership. And so I think that this style of sign is in keeping with what would have been kind of an original idea of what its signage would have been for this building. So I move that we approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion to approve, and I have a second. Any discussion? All right, let me close the floor to discussion, and the motion is to approve the application as presented this evening, and I have a second. We will vote, beginning on my right, please.
Yes.
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 Your application has been approved this evening. Should anything change, please see city staff before you move forward. Good luck with your project.
And this case was also continued from the May meeting. This is HPC 1822. Robert Deson petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of an accessory structure on the property located at 402 17th Avenue in the Pinehurst Historic District. This is in Council District 4. So here we have an image of the zoning. This property is on R1. Here we have an aerial of the property and as well as the surrounding properties. This is an image of the primary structure on the property. Here we have the adjacent northern property. And the adjacent eastern property. The proposal is to construct a 12 by 15 foot storage building. This is located behind the existing garage on the property. The building will be composed of hardy board siding and faux slate roofing. Also include 2 wooden doors, as well as double hung aluminum clad wood windows. So again, here's the primary structure on the property. Here we have the site plan as to where the proposed shed will be located. It will be located just south of the existing garage. Here we have the drawings of the shed, of the proposed shed. Here are the spec sheets for the faux slate roofing. We also have the spec sheet for the hardy board siding. And the materials include the hardy board siding, faux slate roofing, the wooden doors, as well as the double hung aluminum clad wood windows. And here we have the applicable design guidelines. The petitioner is here to speak in person.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bowen? Thank you very much. Let me invite the applicant to step forward, please. And if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. Robert Deson, 402 17th Avenue, Tuscaloosa.
Is there anything else you can tell us about your application?
It's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. It's just a sort of a she shed for Mama to hide, keep all of her stuff in.
And are there windows on both sides?
Yes, we on both sides.
Are there any questions for Mr. Deason? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me open the floor to public comment. Anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to this application? And we have received no submitted comments, and so I will close the floor to public comment at this time and open the floor to discussion or motion by commission members. We have a small accessory structure, appropriate materials.
Motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
And I have a second. Is there any further discussion? All right. So the motion is to approve the application as presented this evening. We have a second on that. We will vote, beginning on my left, please.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Mr. Deason, your application has been approved. Should anything change, please see city staff before you move forward, and good luck. Thank you.
Okay. Next case we have is HPC 2022. Julie Meggs petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for signage on the property located at 1818 University Boulevard. This is in the Druid City Historic District and Council District 1. Here we have an image of the zoning. This property is Zone BN. Here we have an aerial overview of the property as well as surrounding properties. The green box indicates the part of the property you see that we're focused on where the black awning is. Here we have the adjacent southern property. So the proposal is to recover the existing awning on the front of the building with a painted logo, as well as install 3 gooseneck fixtures on the front of the building above the awning. Here we have the drawings of what the existing and proposed awning would look like. And you can also see the 3 gooseneck fixtures on the proposed side of the screen. We also have the spec sheets for those gooseneck fixtures. Materials include a canvas awning and gooseneck fixtures. And here's the applicable design guidelines. The petitioner is here in person to speak on behalf of the application.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen? Thanks, appreciate it. Let me invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to please come to the podium. And if you don't mind stating your name and address for the record, please.
Julie Meggs. I live at 3849 University Boulevard East.
Thank you. So what can you tell us about your application this evening?
So we're a realty company, and we propose the current awning is in pretty bad shape. You kind of start to see it's a little tattered. And so it's to simply improve the look of the building, the aesthetics, but also to look charming as well as, you know, kind of flow with the downtown feel.
Are there any questions for Ms. Meggs? We have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in support of the application or in opposition to it? No submitted comments, correct? All right, I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion and a motion by the commission.
Motion to approve as presented. It's exactly what we kind of talked about last time.
We have a motion to approve. And I have a second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, so the motion is to approve the application as presented this evening. We will vote beginning on my right.
Yes.
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 Ms. Meggs, your application has been approved. Should anything change, please see city staff first, and good luck.
Next case is HPC 2122, Jim and Tia Sledge petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for a material change to 3 windows on the property structure located at 1700 Deering Place in the Deering Place Historic District. This is in Council District 4. Here we have an image of the zoning. This property is zoned R3. Here's an aerial overview as well as the surrounding properties. This is the primary structure on the property. Here we have the adjacent eastern property. And the adjacent southern property. The proposal is to replace 3 existing wood windows with aluminum-clad wood windows. The replacement windows are double glazed with interior and exterior buttons that match the current windows. The color will also be a muted white, which will also match the existing windows. All window sizes and location will be maintained. So again, here's the primary structure on the property. This is the first window to be replaced. And here are windows 2 and 3.
And just to be clear, we're seeing storm windows on these, right?
I'm sorry.
We have storm windows that we're seeing as well in these images.
Yes, I believe that to be correct. Yes. Here's the spec sheet for the windows.
May I ask you a question, Mr. Bowen?
Sure.
On the spec sheet, we see that it is a sash replacement kit. So we are just replacing the sashes, is that correct?
That is correct. The framing that we see will be maintained.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that.
The materials include aluminum-clad wood windows. And here are the applicable design guidelines. We did receive 1 public comment in support of this application. Also, the petitioner is here in person.
Thank you. And public comment came from somebody in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions for city staff? Thank you. And let me invite the applicant to come to the podium, and if you could state your name and your address, please.
Jim Sledge, 1700 Daring Place. What Tia and I have here is a guest room that has 3 outside walls built in 1958, no insulation in the walls. This room is hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and we're trying to improve it a little bit with some modern windows. So that's all we're asking.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Sledge? Replacing the sashes, exterior, interior, buttons, same light pattern? All right. Thank you, Mr. Sledge. All right, so is anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? All right, so we already talked about the submitted comment. So let me close the floor to public comment and open the floor to comments, discussion, or motion by commission members.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion to approve as presented in 2 seconds. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, the motion is to approve as presented this evening. Beginning on my left, please.
Yes.
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 Mr. Sledge, good luck with your project, and should anything change, please see city staff. Thank you.
Next case is HPC 2222, Bill Edwards petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for a material change to the roof on the primary structure located at 2010 9th Street. This is in the Druid City Historic District and Council District 4. Here we have an image of the zoning of the property. This property is on BGO. Here we have an aerial overview of the property as well as the surrounding properties. This is an image of the primary structure located on the property. Here we have the adjacent eastern property. And the adjacent southern property. The proposal is to replace the existing shingle roof with a metal roofing product. This product is overlapping galvanized metal roofing material comprised of 55% aluminum and 45% zinc. The fasteners that will be in place will be screws, but should not be visible from the public right-of-way. Here we have, again, the primary structure located on the property. We also have some additional images that shows the whole roof to be replaced. This is the rear view of the property. The materials include the metal roof. This is an example of what the proposed roof could look like. We also have a local example for 1405 Queen City Avenue.
So we do not have a spec sheet. This is what it could look like, but not necessarily exactly what it will be, correct?
We do have a material sheet, but as far as examples, these are the only 2 images of what it could look like.
Okay, and we can ask the applicant too.
Sure.
Thank you.
And here is the material spec sheet. And here we have the applicable design guidelines. The petitioner is here in person.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen? Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the applicant to please come on up to the podium, and if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is William Edwards. My address is 1522 13th Street.
Great. So, Mr. Edwards, tell us a little bit more about this roof. It's hard. We see the spec sheet. Is that what you want to go with that particular gauge?
So this that is our ideal material. It's just a galvanized aluminum roofing product. I believe it's called Tough Right, and it it would look very near identical to the Queen City example that you saw in the previous photo here.
And then I just wanted to ask about the fasteners. So when Mr. Bowen said they won't be visible from a public right-of-way, I was wondering, is that because it's so high up, or is it because they're hidden, or why? Can you tell us a little bit more about how this is going to be fastened?
A combination of
Okay.
those things. We had opted to do, just based on cost, the screws over basically like a snap lock seam, and we're amenable to changing that if that's something that you guys are interested in doing. It was just about a 60% cost increase to do the snap lock, and when we discussed it with our contractor, he seemed to indicate that it wouldn't be a prominent feature to be able to see the fasteners.
We don't often get an application like this, so we're sort of, I think, taking it all in. I will say that we have approved a standing seam metal roof on a Queen Anne style house in the past in this commission on 4th Street. I can't tell you the specifics on the standing seam and hidden fasteners, all those little technical details I don't remember. But we have seen that style of roof on that kind of house, and it is appropriate. I guess the question is this particular type, but then again, historically, Queen Anne style houses have had, I'm going to say ribbed metal roofs that haven't had concealed fasteners, and that's historically in the past, before there was the more modern product. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Can we go back to the front of the house? I want to compare, like this one you can see on Queen City that there was, this one has gutters, so it'll just come straight up to the gutters. There won't be like, I just drew a blank. Jordan, help me, or Chris, that has the exposed underneath it. Go back to Queen City. Because this one has gutters, so what do you call those on the front?
Outriggers.
There you go. But this one has gutters, so it'll just come to the edge of the gutters. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't currently have any designs to modify the gutters in any ways, although we're amenable to that if it's suggested. I'd also like to point out that we opted, so the roof is currently leaking, and we opted for metal just for longevity's sake, just because of the style of the roof. It's a pretty expensive project, and so we wanted to not have to do it again for a long time. So
Let's go back to a view of the house, front facade. Well, I will say,
another thing I'd like to mention is that the beach house style, and that's an actual example of the roofing product that I pulled from the website.
And it has the gutters on there too.
Okay, let's go back to that and let's take a look at that. Because I will say it's a great house, and it's certainly worth putting the money in, you know, fixing the leaky roof, getting a product up that's going to look good and last.
Sure.
So this is the product that we see in the spec sheets, because just remember that when we approve it, that spec sheet goes with this application and the approval.
Correct. Yes, that is an example of the exact style and finish that we would be using.
Okay.
On that.
Thank you.
Another detail I might add is that this particular product also comes in a painted, like a ceramic style finish. The owners preferred the Galvalume finish, and you know, we just saw some historic precedent for it, so that's kind of what allowed us to lean into that decision. But we are amenable to other other colors if it is a question of color.
And I think that our design guidelines don't dictate color or discuss color. I think when we're talking about a metal roof, though, like this, I would just call it the galvanized look seems appropriate historically.
I believe it does stipulate color.
What does it for roofs?
For the metal roof.
Okay, well, thank you. I stand corrected.
Let's make absolutely sure.
Can we go to the design guidelines on metal roofs? We were just wondering, I just assumed that it wasn't, it just says similar in style, shape, and color. That's roofing materials.
Metal of appropriate style, gauge, color, and fastening system.
Yeah.
Different type of structure.
Yeah, so we don't dictate the color. Necessarily like saying it's within a certain palette. That's kind of where I was going. But appropriate color in this case would be, I'm going to call it that galvanized look. That sound all right?
Yes.
Okay.
I would think that
Okay.
a natural metal color would be what is appropriate as opposed to a painted finish, because painted finish metal roofing this is really more discussion.
I know. No, we're good. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Morris. That was awesome. Mr. McGifford, did you have any comments to add? All right. Any comments down the line here? Any
No.
questions? Okay. Mr. Edwards, thank you. If we have another question, we'll bring you back up, but I think we're good at the moment. Appreciate it. All right, is there anybody here to speak in support of or opposition to this application? And there have been no public comments submitted, so I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor then to discussion and such by commission members.
All right, let's get the color out of the way. I think that the Galvalume color is the historically appropriate color. Almost all metal roofs of any older era would be of a natural finish with a patina at this point if possible. The two that we have seen are examples of that, and the other one that you stipulated or you mentioned on 4th Street also is. As far as the profile and all, I personally feel it's a little bit more of a farmhouse looking roof material, although we do have the precedent of having approved this before. The spec sheet stipulates 26 gauge and 29 gauge. I would think that a little bit stiffer roof would be better from an appearance standpoint, especially if we're talking about having something that has the exposed fasteners, and you don't want oil canning in it walking on you and all that kind of thing. So I would qualify or request utilization of the 26 option on this spec sheet.
Okay.
Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Well, and as I've mentioned, a metal roof is appropriate for Queen Anne style. And, standing seam type were not used historically. That's more of a modern development, so that's okay. My main concern kind of echoes with what Mr. Morris said, is that we have a sturdy enough roof that it doesn't look cheap for it's a wonderful building. So the sturdier the gauge, the better. And other than that, I don't have a real problem with this application because it is appropriate for Queen Anne style. This is not coming out of left field.
Approve as presented in the 26 gauge option.
Second.
2 seconds, that's awesome. All right, any further discussion? All right, so the motion is to approve the application as presented this evening with the stipulation that you go with the heavier 26 gauge roofing material. We have 2 seconds on that one. Any further discussion? We will now vote. Let's begin on my right, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you, everyone. Mr. Edwards, your application has been approved. Should anything change, or should you run into some other issue, please see city staff before you proceed, and good luck with your project.
All right, and the last case of the evening is HPC 2322. Randy Tregline petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of 3 trees located at 1718 3rd Street. This is in the Pinehurst Historic District and Council District 4. Here we have the image of the zoning of the property. It's zoned R1. Here's an aerial overview of the property as well as surrounding properties. This is an image of the primary structure located on the property. Here we have the adjacent eastern property. Here's the adjacent southern property. And also another example of the adjacent southern property. The proposal is to remove 3 trees located around the primary structure. So again, here we have an image of the primary structure. The 3 trees in question, 1, 2, and 3. The first 2, 1 and 2, are located very close to the house. The 3rd tree is growing through the fence that you see at the very bottom. Thank you. Now here are other angles of the tree. As you can see, the first 2 trees are in the image on the left. The image on the right shows that some branches hang over and are touching or close to touching the house. And here are applicable design guidelines. We did receive 2 public comment in opposition to the tree removal. The applicant is here in person to speak.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bowen? They're all three pines, right?
The first 2, let me go back. The first 2 that are closest together,
Those are pine.
those are pine. The one in the back, the applicant should be able to speak on that.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite the applicant to come up to the podium, and if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Jeff Tregline, the builder. I'm standing in for the owner, Randy. 6020 Clubhouse Drive.
Thank you. So can you tell us what, we have 2 pines and what's the other tree?
It is a pin oak.
Okay. Are there any other reasons, the trees are close to the house, is there any other documentation you have about the trees?
The owner just has life safety concerns with the trees being so close to the house, being pine trees. He's worried about them falling through the house. They're large trees and could cause significant damage to the house if they were ever to come down.
An insurance letter from the property owner's insurance company was also provided, stating that they feel that the trees need to be removed as well.
Say that last bit again about the trees.
The insurance provider went on to say that they would like the trees to be removed from the property.
Are they saying if you like, or is it is the insurance company making this a requirement of insurance?
I'll pull it up.
Thank you. There we go. Insurance provider will require that the large trees next to the dwelling be removed for safety reasons. Thank you for that. That's good piece of information. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Tregline at this moment?
I wonder if an arborist has looked at the possibility of removing some of the heavy limbs that are right over the house, which would make a difference in the possibility of threat.
I'm not following you. Why would it make a difference?
Because of the weight
Okay.
of the limbs. I noticed in that photograph that showed the limbs over the house that, yeah, for example, the oak, I believe, is the one that's stretching out to the left there and over the house.
Correct.
And that's the one that's farthest away from the house?
Correct. And it's the one that's, yeah, it's just kind of, the whole tree just kind of bends back over the house.
Yeah, but if
you take
those
out-
limbs were removed right there by a certified arborist, it would change the weight of that tree, and that tree is not so close to the house.
I'm not an arborist, so I can't necessarily speak to that. I've always heard that anything more than a third of a tree, if you cut back, that potentially kills the tree. And the way that tree is shaped, if you were to clear the limbs that are hanging over the house, I believe you would probably be over that 1/3.
But you haven't had an arborist look at it, I take it.
So if an arborist were to look at it and provide a letter stating that they needed to be cut down or that they were diseased or that they were posing a significant threat to the property, then we would expeditively be able to approve it. But so he kind of has two options, either provide an arborist letter or come to you guys for approval. And so that's why they're to you guys tonight.
Can we go to the front picture of the house? And so is it the tree, which trees exactly? Is it on the left side?
Yes, that one, and then the pine tree right next to it, to the left.
And then the big bush kind of is the other tree that's
down
coming over
below.
the house.
That's really kind of right up underneath it. The stuff,
Okay.
the stuff to the left is all, would all stay. I think there's probably more concern with the pine trees than the pin oak. Pin oak doesn't look to be in great shape because it's off the bank of that house. I don't know if y'all are aware, but that house just drops off at that metal fence that it's growing through. And the real reason I think you want to take that one down is because he's trying to preserve that metal fencing that runs along the whole house. He wants to clean all the shrubs and stuff up on it so he can, repaint it and bring it back to what it once was.
Can we go back to that view again, then?
The bottom of that tree is just, it's all through the fence.
Yeah, you can see that in the photograph.
Can you give us an estimate of how far the pine trees are from the house itself?
Less than 6 feet. No, 5 feet. I'm sorry, less than 5 feet.
Do you think they have any structural issues with the trees? Like, do you think the trees cause any structural issues to the house?
If they come down,
I was just like, as it stands right now with them being pretty close, but
I mean, the roots do run up underneath that section of the house. So.
Do Do we have any other questions for Mr. Tregline at this time?
The rear of the house there, that, the side wall we see that's close to the two pine trees,
Yes, sir.
is that one of the original walls of the house, or was the house extended in that area?
This, where those two double windows are, that's the original wall of the house. It was extended past those pine trees where the two-story section is. That was the little section that was added on.
But the wall we see with the half brick and half siding, that was one of the back wall.
That
The
was
original house came that far back?
Yes, sir.
I see.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you asked that, Dr. Nelson. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Tregline right now? We can bring him back to the podium if other questions come up. All right, thank you, sir. All right, so I'll open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? And if you could state your name and your address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Gunnar Kazers. I'm at 1715 3rd Street, so I'm across the street from this property. And I'm against taking out these healthy trees. I don't see any problem with it. Recently, a couple trees were taken out on a Pinehurst house that were definitely like leaning towards the house. But you know, I've looked at these trees; they seem to be healthy. If I think that's a great idea to have an arborist come and take a look at these. They're beautiful trees. And you know, if the owner says that the roots are going to like spread out and damage the foundation, I believe that these pine trees have tap roots that go down rather than spread apart. But I'm just, and as far as the insurance, I wonder if this is an insurance company or just one agent saying that this will harm the house. So, by the way, this is called the Pinehurst neighborhood, so I don't think we should remove too many pines. Thank you.
Thank you. And we received a written comment from Mr. Kazers as well, and then we have another in opposition to this, right? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in support of or opposition to? All right, let me close the floor to public comment, and let's begin discussion by the commission. And we can certainly bring Mr. Tregline back up if we need some more specifics. But as it stands now, we have, in a way, it's sort of two chunks of trees, right? The two that are close to the house. We have the other one going through the fence, right? Two different types of trees. We have the letter from the insurance company. We don't have evidence from an arborist. We haven't had don't have that kind of information.
Can a petition like this be divided, or do we have to make the same decision for all three trees, or can it be a 2-in-1, or, you know?
Sorry, I never can make the microphone work the way that it's supposed to. Dr. Nelson, I think the answer to your question is yes. It does not have to be taken up by the commission as an all or nothing. Under the design guidelines, the applicable design guideline in this type of case is that large canopy trees should not be removed unless seriously diseased or severely damaged, or if it poses immediate threat to persons or property. So if the commission were to feel that standard had been met with respect to some trees but not all the trees, then you could grant the application with respect to the trees that you felt like were a threat to the property or that the showing had otherwise been met, but not approve it as to all the trees. It's up to the commission to determine the extent to which you feel like that the design guideline standard has been met.
Can I just clarify the insurance company paperwork? They're saying they will not insure the property unless those three trees are cut, right? It seems like what they mentioned was that, yeah, I mean, this is what we've got to, so it's just however you interpret it. Your
Right.
insurance provider will require that the large trees be removed.
But here's how
Um,
I'm reading this as, just with Dr. Nelson's question, I think that was a really interesting one about looking at the trees, and something that Dr. Davis had said earlier about that pin oak. And, we're just trying to tease out all the issues with taking down trees. It's a big deal for us. But the large trees next to the dwelling, I can read that as the 2 pines that are really close to that house, right? But not necessarily including the other one, which could potentially be trimmed if it's a problem, or an arborist comes in and says it's got to come down, then it's an expedited review on your part. But I'm wondering if that's sort of where the thinking is going over here.
It is. I can't say what my feeling is at this point, but I felt like I needed to think through that option.
Well, in my opinion, just looking at the photographs, those 2 pines are awfully close to the house. The original wall, they were planted there years ago. They're big, and we've got an insurance company saying that they've got a problem with that.
And I think they've got to be the roots have got to be under the house. There's got to be some type of structural problem in the future. If not, if they didn't come down right now, I think that at some point in time, there's likely a problem there too.
And Price, I wonder if it will be more of a problem with that wall right there, because it's almost equally as close to that wall back there. I'd be afraid that, it could cause that to collapse at some point.
Well, and then the other issue is that wall and that pin oak causing a problem with the fence and whatever's going on right behind there. I can't really tell much from the photos. I can see how everything's getting kind of clumped together down there. But it just drops off. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard for me to tell it. And I don't know the property, and I don't know what's happening there. But so it's hard for me to really tell with that pin oak, but I think those pines appear to be problematic. So may I think out loud for a second and let city staff kind of respond to this? Because anytime we take something away, whether it's a demolition, whether it's tree removal, we take it pretty seriously. And so looking at this application with these trees, we have really, there are 2 separate things going on with the trees. Those 2 that are very close to the house, and the insurance letter talking about those large trees next to the dwelling. That's how I read it with these 2. We've got this pin oak over there. I can't really tell what's going on here. And I wonder if the commission, should it decide to approve the removal of the 2 pines, but then put it out there that anything that happens to that pin oak, if it needs to be removed, we need to have a statement from an arborist or that to deal with you. I'm not quite sure how Mr. Hobbs, how would we do this?
Here's what I would suggest if that's the way that the commission is is thinking about proceeding on it, looking at the 2 pines separate from the pin oak, would be a motion to approve the certificate motion to approve the application with respect to the 2 pine trees next to the dwelling. I'd also include with that motion, trying to think of the right phrasing here, basically to waive the 180-day requirement for a successive application. Normally, if somebody applies for a certificate of appropriateness and the commission denies it, they have to wait 6 months to come back on the same application. The commission could include in its motion a waiver of that 180-day bar. That way, if the applicant does get a letter from an arborist that there's a problem with the tree or work needs to be done on the tree, he can come back to staff for an expedited review. Or if the applicant comes up with more information that outside of an arborist letter, but comes with more information that would satisfy you that the tree needs to be removed, he could come back next month, 2 months, whenever within that 180-day window.
And just an administrative question. If the applicant, say, would come to you for an expedited review, is there a fee involved? Can we waive? There's no fee?
There's no fee.
Okay. And then if we were to waive that 180 days, if the applicant wanted to come back here, is there a fee involved in that?
If you waive it, then it's like the petition they wouldn't have to reapply, would they? Or I don't That's a good question.
Or do we continue the other, is it the
Would
option
be
to continue
continuing
the other
this
tree?
application.
If there was a second application, there would be a second application fee. That application fee, I believe, is $50, if I understand correctly.
Okay.
And
We actually don't have any jurisdiction over pruning, correct? They can
That's
prune as
correct.
much as they want to or
Mhm.
don't want to.
that's correct.
I mean, we might be able to encourage it in a case like this to straighten the trajectory of the tree, increase if the tree is not diseased, and help with the lifespan of it by doing that. But otherwise, as far as pruning goes, we're out, right?
The applicant also does have a better picture on their phone of the tree in the fence.
Can
And-
can
Can
we
we see
somehow
that?
get it through you?
Yes, we can.
Through you guys not? Well, because the other thing I was just going to talk about this fence. And Mr. Pons, let me ask you, because there was
Yes.
recently an expedited review of a tree growing through a fence in downtown, in a historic district. And I don't know if that tree, if an arborist had seen that tree, whether it was diseased or not, or whether it was just growing through.
And all three of us on staff, the planning staff, have been out there, and we can attest that, I mean, the fence is in the tree.
The fence is in this
It doesn't
tree.
make any,
Okay.
or it doesn't show very well in these pictures, but
Can I see that?
Mm-hmm. So it's biting into the bark. Is that what you're showing us? Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, Mr. Pons, with that application I was talking about before, was the tree also diseased, or was it just, I mean, it was a pretty severe growing
Well,
through a
again,
fence
all of
situation.
correct.
But there were
Could make
there were other things going on as well.
Diseased, yeah,
That
you
we
could
Yes.
tell.
both save the fence, not perhaps in its integrity there, but on either side of it. Right. Because of the limbs that are over the roof.
The way it's growing over. I went out there today and took a look. I saw it. I know what you're talking about, how it's growing over. The whole tree is like this. So if you cut it, there's nothing left of it. If
But you
cut
don't
where
have
it's
to cut
hanging.
all of it.
You know what, can you say that again into the mic?
The-
Because that was,
I went and looked at the property today, actually, and what he's talking about is the way the tree is growing, it's growing tilted this way.
Toward the
whole
house.
Top of it, towards the front of the house. And so if you trimmed it, what needs to be trimmed, there'll be nothing left of the tree. It's, the whole front of it is this way.
thank you for that input. All right, so here we are. Back to the situation with the trees. Shall we talk, why don't we do this? Let's talk about those two pine trees first. And see what we think about that. We can talk about that pin oak, and then we can move from there to a motion. So we have, let's talk about the two trees that are closest to the house. I've heard some interesting comments from commission members about, problems with trees that close. We have the letter from the insurance company that says the trees need to come down, those two. How do we feel about that?
It's settled for me.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Moore said it's settled for him. Like, yes, you're in agreement. All right. So we'll set those two pine trees aside, and that part of the application we have dealt with, and we're in fair agreement on that. All right. Let's talk about then this pin oak growing through the fence. So we've got a number of things going on here with that. One, hearing some of the discussion with the applicant and Dr. Davis was that, removing parts of that fence or working around it somehow. But then we've had a commission member actually see the property with that tree leaning over and just sort of comments on that. We have several options with this one. We can either approve the removal of the tree. We don't talk about trimming or any of that stuff, pruning of the tree. So we either approve this tree or we don't, but we can provide the stipulation that we waive the 180-day provision to allow the applicant to either come back here with more information or with a letter from an arborist, go to city staff for an expedited review on the removal of that tree. So those are our two options with that tree, right? What do you guys think?
I will say that if we do, like if we say you can cut down 2 of the 3 and then you've got another month, they're not going to cut down the 2 current trees until another month. So we'll say that is
Right, but what that does, it just sort of gets that sort of wrapped up and set aside and it's done. And then the other tree has the option of going to expedited review, which doesn't have to come back in a month, can be as soon as they have the appropriate documentation.
But if they had an arborist, then they wouldn't even have to come to us anyway, right? So really, if we denied a portion, then they could still come.
No, that's right. That's right.
They
Yeah,
wouldn't have to come to us anyway.
that's right. That's right. So yeah, so that's the whole point of separating them out. If we're not really sure what we think about that other tree, the number 3 tree, the pin oak, because we're not arborists either, and we don't have that documentation, then we can allow the applicant to either, really leave it there, come back to us with some other idea, or get an arborist and get an expedited review with city staff.
Right, and if it's not diseased and they elect not to come back to take it down or petition to us again, they can go ahead and trim it, the part
Right,
that's over the
that's
house,
right.
correct?
That's
And
right.
take care of that without us even involved.
Right, that's right. Trees are always tough. Mature trees like this are always really difficult with this, without having other documentation. But the documentation from the insurance company seems pretty clear to me, and the photographs are pretty clear to me on those 2 trees. So we're fine with those 2. It's just what we're trying to decide right now is what we're going to do with that 3rd tree.
Something else that I might add here is when talking to the owner when we were out there, the method to cut down these trees, they're going to have to get a crane back there. So it's likely that if they're going to cut all 3, they would do it all at once rather than paying the extra money to come back in a month or 2.
Right.
Just a thought.
They're going to have to boom over
Right.
the house and go around the house on the side.
But that's not
It's not.
what we
It's not an
consider. So we
it's
can
an economic
so we
thing,
can
but
approve, say, the removal of the 2 trees now, and they can sit there for a bit, and then once something is determined with the 3rd tree, the whole project can be taken care of at that time. But that shouldn't influence our decision this evening. What do we think?
Could we go to the front of the house really quick? Sorry.
We got to set up a crane we have these power lines that you see in that picture right there. We have to set up a crane on our property. It cannot set out in the road, it has to set up on the property, so we cannot do we can't move forward anything else on the outside as far as putting the driveways in, landscaping and all that kind of stuff.
And I will say that if we're looking at the house from the front, I know that one of the main comments was talking about being able to see the trees. And if you look at the house, I mean, if most people are, like, if it seems like the consensus is to take down the 2 pine trees, you can barely really see. Like, I think the left side, like the lower part is the tree where it hangs over. So really, there isn't that much canopy left that you could actually see from the front of the house.
On the pin oak, you mean?
On the pin oak, like if the 2 pine trees come down, you've got the big hole right there, and the pin oak is really just kind of sitting on the roof. And if they prune it up more or less, you're not gonna see the tree anyway. I think, if we're,
It depends on how it's pruned and what they leave as a
Mhm.
leader, I think.
yes, ma'am. I agree. I was just saying that, like, if I've already agreed, like, it seems like a lot of people on the 2 pine trees, that those are like, one of the main comments was about being able to see the trees. And I think that if those 2 come out and then the other tree is pruned up a lot, I think that you're not gonna see seems like they're almost all gonna more or less not be able to see from the front. For just that little portion of the house, seems like that from this angle, the center of the house.
Is there a motion in there?
I'll let someone else motion.
This is a tough one. I mean, and especially for the newer commission members. Trees are always hard.
I believe that we've given the petitioner the options with the 180-day waiver for an arborist letter to get expedited review or gain other information to bring back to the commission to give us compelling evidence that that the third tree needs to go. In my opinion, the 2 pine trees definitely need to go. So my motion is that approve trees 1 and 2, the 2 pine trees that are close to the house, and 180-day waiver for reapplication for the third tree with other compelling information.
I'll second, and I think that's fair because if you think about the last tree we really looked at was the State Farm office. And that was what we did because that one was going directly over the office, and that was the question of safety. And so I think that is a fair decision.
I think so too.
Any further discussion on that? Are we all, everybody, you all right? Dr. Nelson, you're all good down there? Okay, so the motion then, if I can restate it, is to approve the application as presented for the 2 pine trees that are close to the residence. And that part of this motion is then to waive the 180-day requirement in order to come back to us with compelling information on why that third tree, the pin oak, needs to come down. But you and the owner have the option of getting an arborist letter and going to city staff for an expedited review. You don't have to come to us. Yes, and since that wasn't said on the mic, the question from the applicant was, that the applicant can trim that tree without our approval, and that is correct. Yes, you do not need our approval to do any pruning. So does that sound clear, everybody? We're all good? All righty. I'm not going to restate that one again because I think we've got it. So let us vote, beginning on my right, please.
Yes.
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 All right, so Mr. Tregline, thank you for coming here with this. I know it was complicated. So the 2 trees, you have approval to take those down. The third tree, the pin oak, either more information to come to us, make it more of a compelling case, or an arborist letter, in which case you can go to city staff for an expedited review. All right, and good luck with the project. Thank you.
And city staff approved eight historic expedited reviews this month.
Thank you so much. And thank you, city staff, for all that you do to help with these expedited reviews. And that concludes the hearing for this month. Thank you, everyone.